And you're very welcome to the Racing Room with AK Bets. It's 1 week to Cheltenham, which means Tony Calvin is so excited he can hardly contain himself. How are you, TC? Look at
Oh,
you,
good.
smiley, happy
Yeah.
head in you. Ready to lose all your money in Cheltenham because all the short price favourites will win and you won't back any of them.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It tends to happen like that in the last few years, doesn't it? But
Have you had any anti-post bets as of yet, or how's your trading book looking for Cheltenham so far?
I had a look for the first time last week when I was feeling a bit rough in bed, and the only one I come up with, I've tried to get a few quid on Gorgeous Tom for the Brown Advisory at 20s and 16s. So I backed it way against Ballyburn, but apart from that, not a lot. No.
What about you, Harz? Are you looking forward to Cheltenham? Are you all excited, or does the legal world not stop and everything? What are you doing? What's your plan for the week?
It doesn't. It's a bit of two worlds colliding. Is you have everyone in racing assumes that you're going to be there the entire time, but all my other clients keep doing things like booking meetings and having hearings and getting in the way of Cheltenham, basically. So I don't think I'm going to make it this year, sadly, but I will watch as much of it as I can.
You know what? You're not on your own, Harry,
aren't you?
because you're not on your own. People are going to Benidorm, they're going to Tenerife, they're going to
I
anywhere
know.
but Cheltenham, it would seem,
Wow,
because
isn't
they're sick and
I
tired of being
know.
ripped off. We'll come back to that later on, but it does seem to be a real problem now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a savage indictment of Cheltenham, isn't it? If people are going to Benidorm over it, I keep thinking like it's.
I don't think you should ever go to Benidorm.
I think I'd rather be buried alive than go to Benidorm, to be honest.
You know what? I've never had the pleasure. There was a TV series on once which I watched 5 minutes of, and that was enough for me, I think, a lifetime's supply. But AK, you'll be there, obviously. Well, how's your trading book looking at the moment? Like, what would be the worst result for you now? Do you know? Like, is there one result that you kind of are dreading, or how are you fixed?
For me, it's just the potential of run-ups to get quite nasty on favourites. I think is genuinely the only thing that of concern, I'd imagine.
So me and my type, that's what you're worried about.
Yeah. You dangerous people when you get together and all back the same stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, Anthony, would you say of the money's going to be staked on Cheltenham on the anti-post, is it about 2-3% of what's going to be traded, if that?
I'd say way less than that. Yeah, way less. I think it doesn't even register anymore, to be honest with you. If you're outside of rolling up five-backers, which should still be small relative to day of race stuff, like for example, you're mentioning horses and handicaps and stuff like that. It's like it's so niche. It's so niche now. It's like beyond niche. It's really small. Like where every bet in a handicap anti-post is probably getting looked at because it's so rare. Yeah, it doesn't exist. And from on a day point of view, just as soon as you're in the morning, the liabilities are racking up. Basically, people get stuck in from very early at Cheltenham. It's one of the few race meetings where people are up at, like, traditionally back in the day. I don't know what time the opening show is, but traditionally you'd get up in the morning, wouldn't you? You'd be there at 7:45, and you'd have the morning line on at 8 o'clock. And people are actively betting from early when the festivals are on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm really excited about it anyway. Even if Mr. Calvin there is a little bit, shall we say, standoffish at the moment. Right, Harry, what's the best book you've ever read? What's the best? If I said, Harry, give me a book to read that just like
BHA rules.
See that? There would be a BHA handbook. That is Gary Wiltshire's 50 Years in the Betting Jungle, which I'm about a quarter of the way through so far. I got an advanced copy. AK, you got one too, I think.
Yeah, I paid for mine. Old school.
Oh, really? That's that's slightly sad. I was sent mine, and for various reasons, but it's a very good read. I think it's Gary's second or third book. Third is it? And yeah, it's full of stories of the betting ring and lots of other stuff. AK, have you broken the spine yet?
Haven't at the moment. I'm actually reading Barry Hearn's autobiography at the moment. I'm halfway through.
This is the worst plug I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's the third in the series. 50 years in the betting jungle, followed by 40 years in the betting jungle, followed by lost. Get me fucking out of here.
No, I on Gary Wiltshire, I've only met him. I think I've met him once, and I've had a few conversations back and forward with him and text, and we spoke on the phone a few times as well. He's just one of them guys that I don't know anyone that doesn't like Gary. Like he's
he's
proper
a good
old
guy.
school, decent guy. And I just harking back when I was starting off in the game, just remember him with John Parrott on the TV at Aintree and this kind of stuff, and probably latterly Sky Dogs as well, which as I was getting into the Greyhounds and trading Greyhounds as well. So Gary was just obviously larger than life character and just a very likable character. I know we said we'd talk about his book here. Obviously, I haven't started reading it yet, but he had a book out years ago. His first ever book that came out was absolutely brilliant. I think it's one of the best. It's actually one of the best books, one of the best gambling books. It'd be in my top 10, to be honest with you. The first book, the second book would probably be in my bottom 10. No offense, Gary. And I'm hoping that the third book is similar to the first one, because the first one's
Return to form. Yeah, it's good. So far, so good.
Right. Well, Gary, best of luck with the book. That is your plug. That'll be €499. You can send me if you Cal care of Kilcool in Greystones. Right. AK, why did you decide to pay out early on Liverpool winning the Premier League? And did it actually get the justified kind of publicity that you were hoping for?
We didn't really put much work into publicising it, to be honest with you. It's more for our existing customers. We like to do a good bit for our customers from a retention point of view. Liverpool have basically won the league, haven't they? I think it's the same with obviously it's the same with Celtic. We paid out Birmingham in League One, who are a good bit clear in League One. The one that was probably 50-50, I suppose, or people were just surprised we did it, was Leeds. We sponsored the Not the Top 20 podcast, Football League podcast at the start of the season, and then napped Leeds. So we probably had bigger liabilities. Would we have done? We had big liabilities or similar and akin to Liverpool on Leeds as well. And Leeds are actually only 3 points clear at the top with about 10 games left at the moment. But I personally really think I fancy them. They should be miles clear in the Championship. They're by far the best team. Good example would be the week before they went off odds on away to second in the league, Sheffield United. So like from my point of view, the reason we did it is we had decent liabilities on Liverpool, or decent payouts even. Liverpool and Leeds. Leeds was a decent liability. And it was just to get money back into customers' pockets, basically, pre-Cheltenham, and as part of the messaging on that, show our customers what we're doing with our Cheltenham prices, which are really strong compared to some other bookmakers, basically.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay. I did watch Look on Sunday yesterday, TC, and Invades are I guess doing a good job of kind of publicizing what they feel is the answer to racing's problems. And look, I think, Dominic Matcham was on the show, and like I think he made quite a good case, quite a strong case for what he says is the answer to racing's problems, i.e. young people having fun. It's kind of, what did you say? It's like the Sin City for adults, or whatever it's called, like the paradise for adults. But like, I think he actually made a decent enough point that like maybe racing people are a bit too stuck up and stuck in their ways and need to have a more open mind. What do you think of him?
Yeah, it came across as slightly kind of annoying in places when he was talking about betting.
You find everyone fucking annoying. So like,
and about betting and betting shops, and how it's the whole experience. But they bring thousands to the racetrack. I think they were mob handed at Newbury and Doncaster on Saturday, and and at a time where we can't be snippy about getting crowds in. They certainly do that in their numbers. But yeah, it's you're always going to get people who would rather it be less crowded. But if and certain tracks do segregate them off, don't they, on the inside of the track, etc.
Yeah, but I don't understand that argument. I mean, like, are they dire claustrophobics or something that they can't have crowds around? I don't really get. And the point I think that Invades are trying to make is, look, each to their own. If you want to go and just watch the racing and like have your quiet time and go off somewhere, but you can still do that. Yeah. But like, surely getting more people in the door is a priority.
It's got to be a net positive, hasn't it? It just has to be.
Yeah. Even Harry in his own legal world there. How are you? But come on, embrace the youth here. What do you think?
Well, yeah, quite. We.
Physically embrace them. You get in trouble for that. Go on, yeah.
You can't expect to go to the theatre and have no one else there, even if you quite like having it like that. And that's just the nature of going to these things. Of course, more people is better, particularly for racing at the moment.
100%. Yeah, Franco couldn't draw the crowds out that Invades do. Like massive positive, and people always moan, and bookmakers in particular at the track will always moan. Oh, we turned over 400 quid on this race, and there was 10,000 people that. You're sowing the seeds for later in life as well, and getting people into the game. It's not about. So when you're at uni, your disposable income is absolute buttons. You're on the breadline. I could tell you stories about the medical testing I did on myself at university to get a few quid if you like. But you're absolutely skint when you're at university, or I was, and it sows the seeds for later in life when people might have disposable income.
Yeah, and like his argument as well that it's kind of it just offers a lot to young people that they can come, turn up, have a bet, have a drink, socialize, and whatever else goes with that. And I think, look, if you're not into that, just stay out of it. But I think if it's getting people through the door, and he's very strong that the numbers for his business justify what they're doing. So look, I think fair play to them. And TC, look, in terms of Cheltenham now, look, I mean, I'll be very interested in the kind of final figures they release in terms of the crowds and how many people are out there. I wonder how much of the stories are scaremongering, how much are people just giving out for the sake of it. But there are still reserve club enclosure tickets, are there, for sale?
Yeah, basically there's only the club enclosure sold out on the Friday. There's tickets available for all the other days. That's no surprise. We've been covering this story for a few weeks, and when I spoke to someone from the Jockey Club 2 or 3 weeks ago, they said they don't comment on sales. I would suggest that they're coming out publicly in the Racing Post on Monday saying, come and buy your tickets, that they are struggling still. But yeah, it's like I said, it's to be expected, isn't it? I mean, it's the previous years they've been struggling for numbers, but they've got great racing. Brighter days ahead have just been confirmed for the Champion Hurdle this morning, so that Tuesday just seems to be a brilliant day's racing. So I think they've got the wow factor on most of the days. So hopefully the people will book late.
Yeah, and that Champion Hurdle is going to be a cracker. Lossiemouth, Constitution Hill, and Brighter Days Ahead, like an absolute cracker. Obviously, State Man as well. Not forgetting about him. Jack Kennedy, lads. He's been through the mill. 75 broken legs, and his latest injury, TC, kind of threatened to keep him out of Cheltenham, but he's back. He's riding today, Monday, day of recording, and like I'm delighted for him. I have to say, he's a lovely young fella. He's had no luck with that broken leg, but fair play to the surgeon, whoever's operating him, because he hasn't back for Cheltenham.
Yeah, he's been off since November. Like you said, he's got a couple of rides due on Monday, later on today. Just hope he when he has the inevitable fall, hopefully not before Cheltenham, just hope he gets there in one piece. He's got the big ride on Tuesday now, Brighter Days Ahead. So yeah, just hopefully all the best. I mean, it must be soul destroying, sitting on the sidelines for so long, and you just wish him all the best, don't you?
If you see Sam Ewing walking around with a pair of big Doc Marten boots on him and going over to have a kick in the leg, you'll know exactly why. Look, he's the only guy that obviously will be a little bit disappointed, but the two of them are best friends as well. So look, I think he'll be delighted that Jack is back in the saddle. So look, best of luck to him, and it should be a cracking Champion Hurdle, as I said. They've done the right thing, I think. There was calls for AK the Supreme Novices Hurdle to be named after Michael O'Sullivan. Cheltenham have duly done that, which I think is just the right thing to do, right?
It's probably more the sponsor, I'd say. I think the sponsor deserves some credit there, in fairness to them, Skybet. It's definitely the right thing to do, I'd imagine. And I think fair play to them. There's obviously a lot of money goes into that stuff, and you can do all your bonuses and all your cups and jockey cups and stuff like that. But I think this stuff is miles more important. And when you're taking your name away from an acquisition point of view, even just from a bookmaker point of view, probably the biggest race of the festival, getting people in for race one, and you're willing to remove your name for the greater good there, I think it's very, very, very commendable, and they deserve respect for that, I think.
The Cheltenham Roar in the main stand at Cheltenham, or the Cheltenham Roar in Benidorm? Which do you think will attract more attention?
I dread to imagine what the Cheltenham Roar might mean in Benidorm.
Jesus, it's probably a cry for help. Okay. Speaking of bonuses, TC Sandown have put up 100 grand of their own money from the racecourse for the end of season races. Like, is this a decent gesture? Do you think? Was it always coming?
As with the Moore battle on Saturday, there was a 100 grand bonus there. It's not likely to be won. I imagine if they hedged it, 100 grand, that's what most people do insurance wise when it comes to stuff like this. It wouldn't take them much. But Andrew Cooper got in touch, and just said that's what they're doing. He made a point of saying it's Sandown's money and not Betfair's money. So the course are putting it up rather than the sponsor. But
when I saw this story, it was the first thing I thought of. Did they hedge this? So, and if they did, I'd be interested in the terms because I bet I could beat them.
But yeah, always
taking the 100,000 that was supposed to go towards the ladies' dressing room, and they put it up as a bonus. So
when we used to do the Betfair Million, we had a couple of people who actually hedged the Betfair Million on the exchange, race by race. So when they actually paid out the Betfair Million to Clive Smith in the second year, I think it wasn't as bad as handing over 7 figures because you know
100%.
they did try to.
They all do. It's a really interesting part of the business. My ex-employer had a firm called Ayrton Risk. Ayrton Road would have been the old Paddy Power offices before they got big. And they had a firm called Ayrton Risk, which does a lot of hedging of bonuses. I think they do Man City, they do a few other clubs, or they did previously hedging performance bonuses. They do a lot in the States. It's been a big part of probably the FanDuel stuff. A couple of guys broke away and formed their own company called Black Swan Hedging or something like that. So it's actually a big. I'll tell you a good story actually. The Irish Greyhound board were doing a bonus. Well, this is when I was looking after Greyhound. So they did like a bonus. You get 50 grand if you win the English Derby. It might have been the English and Irish Derby, but I think the first version of it was the English, Scottish, and Irish Derby. If you won all 3 of them, you got like a 50 grand bonus or something. And I got asked to price it up, right, for Ayrton Risk. And I was basically like, it's got absolutely no chance. Like, you're probably a big price to get a runner in all 3, never mind a winner. And I quoted them basically. I said, all right, if I was being ultra conservative, it'd be like 200, 250 to 1. Like, it's absolutely no chance. And I was checking, the deal never got done. And I remember speaking to someone at the Irish Greyhound board to see what Ayrton Risk quoted them. They basically got quoted 9-2. So I was like, fuck it, I need to get into that game.
Oh my God, 9-3 on the derbies. Okay, did you watch the racecourse Gallop with Constitution Hill last week, Tony?
No, it wasn't publicised. It wasn't.
It wasn't videoed.
It wasn't live. But
the clips we saw clips on social media.
The journalists were there who were actually just taking pictures and stuff. Actually, bizarrely, I think someone was actually timing the gallops as if it had any relevance whatsoever. But it just we touched upon it last week. I mean, the Lambert gallops, you know, and so did Palladium, and one of those should have been running 4 days previously at Kenton itself in an actual race. I just wonder whether all the press turn up for these things, you know, they really shouldn't be doing that and publicising it as much as they should do, because they're going to get what they wish for. If these become more commonplace in place of races, then it can't be good for the sport. And I don't think they should be lauded as much as they are, to be perfectly honest.
And as well, I just don't think they do any favors with the reaction after the Constitution Hill. Like, you know, it just Nico de Boinville was just. I mean, he didn't do anything special. I mean, the horses he was running against are very average, and he was just way over the top. I thought
you've got journalists actually kind of like raving up. Dominic King from the Mail, I know him and he's a good guy and stuff like that. He was actually going totally overboard about it. I mean, the horse won as he should have against 226 rated horses, you know, and he's never going to give in a hard. It's kind of like just stretching their legs, aren't they?
Were members of the public allowed to go and watch this one?
I don't think they were. I think was it on Luck? Well, I didn't watch Luck on Sunday yesterday, but I saw the snippets, and someone said there was an antiques fair going on there on the same day. I don't think they're allowed to kind of like go and put their head around. But I don't think it was open to the public as such. But I think the public were actually there. But it wasn't a type of the City of Troy type one at Southall.
No.
The recording bargain hunt in the middle of the track. Someone's flipping a clock for a tenner and getting 13 quid for it, and we're spending millions on fucking point to point on the other side of the track.
Yeah, crazy. And then just a couple of notable wins, shall we say? TC, look, for different reasons. I put up in the group yesterday, somebody in a different WhatsApp group that I belong to put up Darcy's Friend as a tip yesterday at 6-4. And I was looking through the form figures and said, holy shit, how could you back that horse 6-4? Well, turns out a lot of people did. And it duly obliged. First run for Emmett Mullins at Leopardstown yesterday. Bit strange, wasn't it?
Yeah, I look at this. I don't tend to kind of bet on Sunday. But yeah, this one was called a horse called Darcy's Friend, who actually showed some really good point-to-point form in December 2023. Shown absolutely nothing since, but then was transferred to Emmett Mullins in September. They sat on it and off a mark of 87 was back down to 5-4 and duly won. But yeah, so the ready-made excuses, it goes from a lesser trainer to Emmett Mullins, and this. And the one previously, I mean, Anthony kind of like flagged this up, and we got some background on it. A horse called Golden Goose.
Yeah.
That was a more fascinating one because it was Tara Lee Cogan's first, well, perhaps nominally her first winner. I couldn't find when her previous winner was. She was the trainer that stood in for Shark Hannon when he was off. And obviously he came back on the 1st of March officially. We'll come on to that in a moment. And on the day he returned, a horse in Cogan, trained by Cogan, actually landed a very, very interesting punt. And again, that had shown very, very little as well. But fair play to Simon Knott for flagging it up at Newbury.
Yeah. Did you take much money out of it, Gabe?
No, not particularly. No, I think the Darcy's Friend one. I think we've seen that playbook a few times of no form for other trainer switch to Emmett Mullins and win after being bet through the floor. I think that's routine enough. The Golden Goose horse, yeah, it was obviously the first I saw of it was just on Twitter, to be honest with you, when I saw Simon's tweet, and I got in touch with Simon. He said there was some an Irish fella going around the ring trying to have lumps on, saying that I'll see you all at Cheltenham, I'll collect at Cheltenham, basically. So
Really?
yeah, I think you're probably reading those blogs and you're probably seeing that amounts are being placed, but I think you're probably also seeing that it's tough to get money on horses, basically, if they're going to be driven through the floor and they've got no form, especially hours and hours before the race. I think it's fair enough approaching on-course bookmakers as a way out, but I'd imagine as those bets were laid, they might have been reinvested elsewhere, I'd imagine, by some bookmakers on the track, and your price is going to crash anyway. So it's just tough to get decent money on crap horses, basically.
Yeah, he was trying to get 4s, and I think it won at 5-4. So yeah, I think the gamble that we talked about last week, where it was unraced, I think that's fair enough. But I think generally these leave a nasty taste in the mouth, don't they? When they suddenly sprout wings.
That's what it is, though. I think I don't know. I don't particularly mind it, to be honest with you. It's part of the game, and you just need to read the signals of order flow, I think, and adapt as a bookmaker, and same as a punter as well. I think, yeah, it's good that it's been talked about before the race rather than after the race.
Okay. A couple of matters on the track, TC, before we move on then. El Fabiolo just looks gone in the game. He is not the horse of a year and a half ago. He won't be running in the champion chase, more than likely, but he was beaten in Navan over the weekend. And Grey Dawning put in a very impressive round of jumping. Like, you know, when Grey Dawning's in full flow, he really is beautiful to look at. But El Fabiolo looks gone. He just looks shot.
Yeah, I think they were leaning towards going to Entry anyway, and they might well go there, but it's not going to go champion chase, and I wouldn't have thought he'd go Ryanair. But Yeah. The other disappointment in the race, last of 5, was Grange Clear West, and Grange Clear West, and they were only beaten by a horse rated 138, but Grange Clear West finished second to Gallop on Deschamps at the DRF.
Yeah, that was over 3 miles.
Yeah, I know, but it's previously had some form over 2 mile 4, and like I said, it was quite a lowly race. He should have been doing a lot better than that. It just got, and Grey Dawning's not going to Cheltenham; it's going to Wiltshire as well. It just got me thinking how many runners are going to line up in the Gold Cup. I mean, I think runners are going to be quite sparse in places like the Champion Hurdle and the Arkle, but the Gold Cup could be a very small field now. It just got me wondering whether they might reroute the Grand National favourite. I know the way you're thinking into the Gold Cup. But yeah, otherwise it could be about 6.
You know, I hadn't noticed that until you said it, because like Gallop on Deschamps has just been taking up so many column inches, and I think he's 2 to 1 on to win the Gold Cup for a 3rd time.
So he should be.
It looks pretty weak.
It's luckily there's going to be luckily the long range forecast of Cheltenham's very good, and they're talking about there may be watering at the end of the week. But yeah, I mean, if it was soft ground, the second favourite Banbridge wouldn't go. So it could be a real kind of like a small field affair. That.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff.
Banbridge is my one bet of the festival so far each way.
Really? Yeah.
That is a proper filth each way bet, 3 places. Yeah.
When did you back him after he won King George?
Say again? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, it was recently enough. It was last week.
Would that race be on your each way bad races dissertation? Would that be quite?
There's so many, isn't there? Should the Arkle is as bad as it gets from what I can see.
Yeah, sure. Like on the first day, AK Copic to board, Margeborough, well, whatever your view on the Champion Hurdle is, and then whatever goes into the Mayor's Hurdle as well. But look, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, a lot of short prices, I think.
Yeah, it'll be it won't be great, and then you'll be looking at an ultimate, a quarter 4 or a 5th, some extra places, and yeah, it's set up for. It's always I used to love it from when I was punting as a betting day. The first day.
Oh, I love it.
It's brilliant.
It's my favorite day.
Betting day. Yeah, it's the best day, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Okay. The Racing Post survey of punters. Pretty much outlined, AK, which I guess we've been talking about for the last, well, you have been in particular talking about for the last few months about the prevalence of the black market for one, and I guess all these financial checks around bookmakers driving customers away from legitimate betting companies. And I don't know, like, I mean, it wasn't a surprise to me, the results of the survey. I don't know what you thought looking at it. It's pretty much what you've been saying for the last few months, right?
Yeah, I think it's generally accepted now. Probably wasn't as fashionable back in the day, but generally accepted now. I would say that, my thoughts on the black market, and even that survey, I would say just massively underrepresents what's going on, if anything. I think it's a lot more prevalent than people understand or realize. And yeah, I think I think probably turnover is absolutely fine. It's just turnover in the legal market is collapsing. I think turnover is absolutely fine. I think from an interest point of view, doesn't seem to be going through the floor to me. It just seems to be a migration of business outside of the legal market, and I think that the legal market just needs to do everything it can to reverse that, essentially.
So just some of the main points for people who aren't familiar and for listeners who mightn't have seen the survey. So more than 1 in 3 of the highest stake bettors admit to using a black market bookmaker in the last 12 months. 24% of bettors have been subject to affordability checks, an increase from 17% in 2023. 61% of those confronted by a check refused to provide the financial information requested of them, while only half of those who complied were given a satisfactory deposit limit. 64% said their decision to use the black market was in direct response to an affordability check, and 44% of bettors have had restrictions placed on at least one account, up from 35% 2 years ago. Harry, I mean, look, what do you make of this? Is it a pretty sad indictment of where we're at? And is it only going to get worse, or is the pennies finally beginning to drop that this is just going to, kill off horse racing if they keep going like this?
Gosh, a lot of questions in there, Hugh. I think that the overriding thought on this is, why did no one ask punters without gambling problems about this at the time of coming up with affordability checks. No one, you would normally, well, you would hope to see focus groups, people being asked, if you were asked for this information, would you have provided it? Because the assumption of the regulator appears to have been that punters or customers will just cough this stuff up on request. And it was astonishingly naive to think that, and this is playing out as everyone thought it would. I act for a number of independent bookmakers, and they're having a nightmare asking their clients for personal information, because the response from most people is, I'm not giving you that, you're a bookmaker. That is just the usual response. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that we're talking about whatever it is, 63% refusing to hand over that information. I'm surprised it's not, anecdotally, I'm surprised it's not higher.
The knock-on effect of it isn't just that as well. The knock-on effect is the ripples for that go through all of the functions of the industry. Like, why would you invest any money in customer service if after a customer hits a relatively small level that they just leave and they move on to the next bookmaker? And so they go through all the legal market, presuming they are doing that, and then migrate outside of that. Why would you invest in customer service?
But this is the thing, and this is a part. If we say even within the regulated sector, you are incentivizing bookmakers who are less careful with regulations, because it's easier for them to get to take. They will get more work, they'll get more customers by people who, if you get a bookmaker who, we've got bookmakers who are well known for being bad at paying out, for example. If you become a bookmaker that's well known for triggering your affordability checks quicker than everyone else, you're at a huge disadvantage to the rest of the regulated market. And that's got to be the opposite from the way that regulation should work. But, what can we do?
I've read about this week. I mean, I don't know whether it's kind of like fact or fiction, or if it's when it's going to come into play. What's this £150 deposit limit? What does that trigger this from the 1st of March?
I have to say, I only just saw that the other day has come in. There have been all sorts of floated figures.
Yeah.
It's what, AK, sorry?
It's soft checks, I think, isn't it, in the background?
Soft checks.
It's not my area of expertise. I have people that do this for me, but I believe it's soft checks in the background.
Yeah,
just
it's not something I've particularly
looked at.
That's going to happen across everybody in the legal market. That's a legal requirement now as part of your license. So that happens to everybody, no matter what.
But the soft checks are supposed. You're not even supposed to know those are happening. The soft checks.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. But then what will happen is, I'll give you a hypothetical example of what happened. There used to be, I think there used to be £500, but don't quote me at that. Or there might have been something above that anyway. But then what will happen in some instances is you do the soft check. Let's say a customer fails the soft check, right? I'm just thinking again from a customer point of view, right? There's a soft check going on in the background. Customer fails. He's got a county court judgment from 5 years ago. He's gone. He comes up red on it. You've got to get rid of him. So what happens then is the bookmaker, as in us, you close the account because we can't take that business under the rules. So you're actively discouraged from it, and you can't take it. Customers close, but you can't say to the customer, you failed the soft check because you had a county court judgment and we can't take bets from you. You just have to say, we'll stop trading with you. We've made a business decision to stop trading. Then that customer goes, fucking hell, they're an absolute joke. Like, can't I deposit £100 and they close my account, and we're just like, it's not. This is the like, from a customer perception point of view, it makes you think that legal bookmaker, he's an absolute disgrace. But that you really are caught between a rock and a hard place with some of this stuff. And I just can't see how any of this stuff is not just kicking turnover offshore, just constantly kicking offshore.
One of the theories of what is going, what is either the aim or what is going to happen here is that the regulated market is going to turn into a casino market, basically, for small punters. And sports punting is essentially going to be shunted into the black market over time and just not be regulated at all. We're certainly on the right path for that at the moment. It's a long way off, but this is this is a malfunctioning market at the moment, and it's malfunctioning because of the way it's regulated.
It just occurred to me, I know we're joking about, punters going over to Benidorm, Tenerife, sunnier climes for Cheltenham. I wonder if part of that is, I used to go to Tenerife quite a lot, just to short breaks and stuff for about 10, 15 years ago. And when I used to go into to watch the racing in the afternoon, and there was a three grand per slip limit cash betting in a relatively small little pub I used to go into. And they were obviously, if you're a consistent winner, you might not get paid out, but you could have, and that was in just a small bar. If you're having those kind of bets to win that without, obviously, there's no kind of like affordability element there. You're handing over cash and you're getting it back. I just wonder whether, and when these people are going to these bars, there will be illegals in there. They are
100%. Yeah,
they are.
There must. I'd be very surprised if there were.
But there's a group of gangsters, and tell you what, who literally run that kind of area for the cash betting. I wonder if that's an element to people going over as well, because if you are just getting clamped, if you're hitting a certain limit over here, you can go over there.
It's what I hear about the whole gambling charity activism sort of thing is, like, I think it's fairly true that these guys probably, listen, they're probably making a few quid out of it, but it's probably fairly true they do have the best interests of problem gamblers at heart. I'd say that's probably true. I just cannot stand they are not acknowledging the knock-on effects of what they're doing and kicking so many problem gamblers outside of the legal market. It's so bad. And I just can't stand that I don't know how they square that circle basically in their heads and think that they're doing all the work is all encompassingly good when you can see the knock-on effects of it, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. It does a disservice to people that have problems.
There you go. Lights back on. That's what you get for scrimping on your electricity bill, AK. In terms of racing overall, then, look, I know, TC, you kind of highlighted a couple of tweets about just, I guess, the knock-on effects and the problem that just AK was just talking about there. James Knight says, one of the few things that racing has in its favour now as a betting product for operators is that players will go on to bet on other stuff. In terms, you've spoken with this, AK, about the cost for you of just providing odds on horse racing at the moment versus the return you're getting and all the costs involved is almost not worth your while. Jesus, lads. You don't like to be doom and gloom the whole time, TC, but Christ almighty, where are we going with this?
It's one for Anthony, really, because I saw the kind of like tweet thread, and Vaughan Lewis, I think he's from 888, he was on there as well, pretty much saying the same thing as James. It is doom and gloom wherever you look. It's all right us being, other people being positive and stuff, but the reality is quite grim. And I just put it on, I just flagged it up because Anthony's touched upon it before, how unattractive racing is to offer for bookmakers because of the costs involved. And
yeah, it's it really is the cost element of it. There's certain instances with, as you know, the tax element of it, media rights are going one way. There's the turnover tax in Ireland, which we've spoken about. There's people now talking about separate wallets for different sports, and horse racing being separated in a separate wallet. Like, I cannot think of anything worse that's going to kill your turnover. There's plenty of evidence of what happens with multiple wallets and bad tax regimes. It'd be an absolute disaster. It'd be the next disaster coming down the line, having a separate wallet for horse racing. There's plenty of evidence there. We say like exchanges that had presences in Australia and separating Australian bets on Australian sports due to bets on rugby. Tony might have some knowledge of that, but like you see what it's done to the turnover. You have a look at an exchange that has a presence. I try and be as vague as I can here. An exchange that has a presence in Australia that used to have, and I don't know if they still do, separate Australian wallets, and then they have different tax regimes for betting on rugby, for example. And have a look at the turnover on a Super Rugby game on that exchange. There won't be a penny in any box at 6 a.m. when your Super Rugby starts, because they can't take bets on it under those conditions.
I flagged it up on the WhatsApp group. I went to have a bet on a Super Rugby match on last Friday morning, It was just second half, interesting. I thought it might be a decent trading game. I went into the exchange market. It's exacerbated by the fact that they've split the match odds market. There was a 1, 2, 3 market, and there's a kind of like draw no bet market as well. But there was literally not a penny in either market.
Nothing
So
there.
I couldn't place a bet. I mean, I can't get a fixed odds bet on. So, but obviously the exchange you can. But there was literally blank, and it was a
It'd be
live
like-
match on Sky Sports going on, and
And it's not, there's not a penny there, as in, I want to bet on the 7 o'clock at Southall tonight, and there's actually 30 quid there or something like that. There is not a penny there, and they are empty boxes. You can't trade under those conditions. People are talking about splitting out horse racing. I'm like, what planet are you on? Like, from a customer behavior point of view, people won't tolerate that stuff. You're just gonna kill it. You're gonna kill it quickly. And which might be the modus operandi of some of the groups that are getting into
I remember
horse racing.
I remember when Betfair got the Australian license, and like you said, they had to split up a separate wallet for Australian sport. It was just for over here. It was just a killer. And in addition to that, Betfair members of staff couldn't bet on. Couldn't bet into the Australian wallet, so it was even worse for someone like me who liked to bet on rugby union over there. It was a nightmare. Yeah. So yeah, I think all this talk of wallets is, again, like the Racecourse Gallops. Just be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, understand the issue at hand, because you really need to look at all the ripple effects of what will happen if this comes in. And I meet very few people that I think understand the situation at all.
Yeah, looks good on paper, but you know, when you try and apply it, as I say, lots of problems. James Lavelle had an interesting point about, and I know, Harry, maybe you have a view on this. His attempt to show support for what the greyhound industry is going through at the moment by sponsoring a race in Foss-Lass. He said, just had 2 of our races names for tomorrow's proud to be Welsh Race Day sponsors at Foss-Lass vetoed for being too political by the BHA. They were Dragon Bet stands with Welsh Greyhound Racing, Dragon Bet proud partners of the Valley Stadium. So the BHA have vetoed this, and the perception is, or the interpretation maybe is, that look, they don't want to get muddied with the greyhound problem at the moment, Harry, and they'd rather keep their bibs clean. You can kind of understand that. I guess I can understand that myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a brilliant bit of advertising and marketing by Dragon Bet. This, much like AK's stunt not that long ago, but perhaps slightly less humorous. Yeah, look, it is political, because it's the definition of political. It's being debated in the Senate, and sports organisations, as we know from Eurovision, it's not a sport Eurovision technically, but during the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine had this difficulty. It is a perennial difficulty for sports organisers, because if they allowed this in, even if they agreed with it, and this is a different subject, of course, even if they agreed with its underlying message, where do you stop, basically? So I think that fair play on Dragon Bet for doing it, but I think they probably knew what the result was going to be, and I think the BHA's hands were tied on this one.
But I don't understand here is, why is greyhound racing becoming such a pariah? A lot of people are saying, oh, all the public perception out there is against greyhound racing. All the stats saying, it's, punters don't like it, they're moving away from it. But it's kind of like horsepower, the racing side of it. That was relaunched last week, about, the fatality stats in horse racing and stuff like that. All these people are coming out, and Neil Channing doubled down on Matt Cousins' stuff from last week about greyhound racing. Nobody's come out with any stats whatsoever or any facts about why greyhound racing should be kind of like, you should distance yourself from greyhound racing. I mean, we touched on Mark Johnston last week saying, actually, the fatality stats in horse racing are far worse than greyhounds. So I just don't get where this anti-greyhound element is coming from.
Snobbery towards the working classes, as usual.
Yeah. Well,
it's amazing. wasn't look that long ago, someone was asking, might have even been Ben, when Greyhound Racing was going to get a statutory levy. I mean, we are so far off that ever happening as to be untrue. There is no political space to do that. At least Nandy's been relatively firm in her support of British Greyhound Racing. But I think the answer is that Greyhound Racing is also a much softer touch. I suppose it slightly goes into Anthony's point there. It doesn't have anything like the institutions. It's not supported by the royal family, by vastly rich foreigners. It just doesn't have that. It doesn't have the.
It used to be.
Well, yes, but nowadays, it certainly isn't. It's a much easier target, I think, is the answer.
Yeah. Look, I can understand the BHA's position as well.
Working classes, lads, they all know what's best for us.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, to an extent, we do.
Jack Kennedy's had a bit of good luck getting back for Cheltenham, but unfortunately, James Bowen is going to miss the festival, and he would have had quite a couple of tasty rides over the course of the week. Nicky Henderson came out quickly and said, look, it's a shame. He picked up a suspension. Nicky said the rules are the rules here, but it looks like Harry, there's nothing he can do about it. However, you kind of dress it up here. Is it just you just suck it up, take the punishment? There's nothing you can do here, or is your legal eye spotted something where you can get him off the hook?
No, I haven't. I think it's going to be. I think Nicky Henderson made his mind up pretty quick, and I think Exhibit A might be some of the things that Nicky for the BHA might be some of the stuff that Nicky said in his interview straight afterwards. But listen, we'll wait and see. Look. How far are we from Cheltenham now? It's 2 weeks.
So this week.
Is there a chance that it's for everyone's benefit that this appeal takes place after Cheltenham for various organisational reasons? It's probably pushing it to get it beyond Cheltenham.
I think I read that it has to take place beforehand because he's banned on Sunday and Monday for a separate careless riding.
Oh, okay.
So he can't defer the ban because
no. Well, I wondered if that might be why they lodged the appeal in the first place, was to try and just delay. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened, but it sounds like that's not it.
It's about the Henderson quotes. He came out brutal, but there's nothing we can do about it. I remember when in the case at Lingfield with Dean Ivory, they actually brought up the Matt Chapman interview. How unhelpful would it be? I suppose every lawyer would just say, keep quiet, everybody involved. How unhelpful will those Henderson quotes be in any appeal?
You're quite right, Tony. The answer is they're not admissible. It is extremely unlikely that those would go before the panel, but the panel follow racing. That's one of the things you always have to bear in mind. They will have, in all likelihood, have seen that. In which one was it? It was a recent one. We had, it was the Zarovich, where the jockey had come out and said, I hit the horse 10 times. It is not always impossible to get around things that people say publicly for various reasons. And that reason is he didn't know the difference as I recall, it's the difference in the rules of Irish racing and English racing, whether an attempted hit was a hit or not. So you're not all, you can be held to these things to an extent, but in Dean Ivory, it was rejected. The interview with the steward's interview with Matt Chapman was rejected. But it's always a little bit silly because generally speaking, in order to reject evidence, the panel has to look at it in order to decide whether it's admissible. And then they play this kind of mental gymnastics where they go, right, well, that's not going to play part in our decision making. So, and they will be alive to that, but equally it's going to color your thinking. So what people tend to do is make the application, know that the panel will see it, hope it doesn't annoy them. If it's really desperate, it's just going to annoy the panel, and hope that that it does have an effect on what we tend to call a prejudice point, a point that will colour the panel's views against the other side, even though it's not strictly relevant to the issue at hand.
Yeah, fair enough. The old case in the Zarovich there, but. Yeah, no, look, it's interesting though. Eric and Conor McNamara, conversely, TC have won their appeals on the Mount Ferns ride that we discussed on this show a couple of weeks ago. And, the Irish field had a piece on it, but they just said, look, they were successful in their appeal, and that's pretty much all the information we got.
Yeah, I mean, when we touched upon it, I mean, I think I remember saying it wasn't, particularly out of the ordinary, and I had a good look at that race before we did the podcast, and I saw a couple of other horses in that race where you could probably level the same claim at. So, I mean, they won the appeal. Yeah, I mean, it was quite serious because just looking at it, there was a £6,000 fine for the trainer, 40-day ban for the jockey, which is colossal, and a 90-day ban for the horse. So they've won their appeal. Probably, I don't know if this is your area, Harry, but it just seems like getting a non-trier case over the line. I imagine it's very hard for the regulator because it's very
Betting
hard to
records.
prove, isn't it?
It's always in my experience and opinion, it's really hard to do if you don't have suspicious betting records. As we've often said, you get panels who look at them and go, oh, that's an obvious an obvious stopped horse. And you think to yourself, if I'd just shown you that race from 6 angles 20 times, I don't reckon you'd have spotted that ride at all. It is what only once you start to see suspicious betting activity, really, in my view, that you can start to see a stopping, a relatively well done stopping ride. And if you don't have that, I think it's a very difficult thing for the authorities to try and prove. I remember talking about this at the time again. We weren't, or rather Tony, and we weren't sure. There didn't appear to be any suggestion of suspicious betting, did there? And I still don't think we've heard anything about suspicious betting on that one. So I think that might, it is very difficult to prove a stopping ride as opposed to
in life. It's very hard to prove that somebody didn't do something, which is essentially what you're alleging here.
Yeah, exactly. Proving negative. And he's got you do to an extent have to listen to the jockey who's sitting on the horse. And he said the horse, I think it was hanging, didn't he, badly, was his explanation. Well, how do you get around that? In the absence of something that suggests that is wrong, how do you actually get around that explanation? You need something pretty meaty to get around an explanation like that. And that's where things like betting records come in.
It reminds me of that Windsor case in the summer where he looked to have dropped his hands when he just said he was hanging. Unless you call him a liar, then and he just said safety.
Well, there was the one of he'd become unbalanced.
Yes,
remember, and he stood up in his. There were two over a short period. Jamie Doyle, wasn't it, or someone?
Yeah, Jamie Doyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, very difficult to prove. Okay, good stuff. Briefly, Gay, Kellaway, and Anne Duffield, their beautiful, harmonious new relationship is not going to happen. TC, not a lot we can say about this. I know it was on the cards, we spoke about it, and there seemed to be significant movements and all that kind of stuff, but it's not happening now, so that's all we can say, really, right?
Yeah, she sent 10 horses up there. She brought them all back again. Her sales fell through on her stables. She's looking to put someone in place there to take over. She wants to retire and just hand it over to somebody else to kind of like rent out. But yeah, that would have been potentially interesting between Gay, Kellaway, and Anne Duffield. That would have been quite a fiery combination, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
And Duffield might be going into partnership with Matt Letizia, I think.
Are they the same persuasion? Are they about
Ricky Lambert, Matt Letizia, and Anne Duffield? It's a new partnership.
There's some fairly shocking stuff on her Twitter account, which I had not had the misfortune to come across until yesterday evening while preparing for this. I suggest that people avoid it, frankly.
Yeah. Matt Letizia would fit in with Trump's new government quite well, wouldn't he? Bangers in there. Right, and then just briefly before the questions, Shark Hanlon is back. He has been reinstated. He has a new Gallops that he's been building over the last couple of months while he was suspended, and he is now seeking out new owners' investment in terms of horses. He sold a lot before he was suspended, which I think was pretty good business from his part, just to kind of clean the slate a bit, TC, but yeah, he's looking for. He said, "Look, the whole world supported him, and now he wants people who supported him to come and invest a few horses with him.
I think we're pretty much as one, weren't we? Saying he got quite badly done
He
to.
got ridden rock solid, is what we're saying.
When we send in the racing room horse to Shark.
Yeah, yeah,
When he invests in a covered trailer.
yeah. Yeah, a few knots for the old tarpaulin, and we're in.
Or when he lets us know about these gambles.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice. Okay, question time. Warren says, regarding the owner filing a lawsuit against a jockey in the US, could it happen here? Harry, I'm not familiar with that case, but
Yeah. It's in America, I think. An owner appears to be suing a jockey in Kentucky for allowing a 2-length lead in the closing stages to be eaten up for easing his mount. Listen, I don't know about the law in Kentucky at all. The fact that he is also applying for his costs, when apparently under Kentucky law it's almost impossible to get to your costs, suggests that this might be quite an aggressive litigant. Listen, here, I think you would really struggle. Anything short of a fraudulent ride, a jockey that literally can be established that a jockey took active steps to stop a horse that would win or place other, not doing that, stop them from doing that. You're not going to mount a successful claim in, I don't think, contract law or negligence for a jockey that just messes up. The rules are designed to deal with that. It is envisaged by all parties that jockeys can make really stupid decisions. What's not envisaged is that jockeys might cheat. So I think you might. I don't think there is any suggestion, by the way, that this jockey has cheated. But yeah, I over here, I'd say win in a prayer stuff. Who knows what happens in Kentucky?
Hi, I'm Alan Partridge, and I drive a car, but not like this. Let's have a look at what this idiot did in America. David says, thoughts on Kenton Wednesday, please. Surface made slower for Constitutional Gallop, was it? Still slow for the first race. Harrowing track between races to try to quick it up. Could only do one strip up the middle, which made the cutoff no use as the ground was much slower on the inside. Very poor. TC?
I did have a look at this. I couldn't find any evidence before for or against that. So sorry, David, but harrowing on all weather tracks isn't my specialist subject. And I couldn't find anything about it happening or not.
Okay. No, we're not saying it didn't happen, David. We're just saying we couldn't find anything to support your theory. Andy McCauley says, when you work for bookmakers, did you just get a flat wage off them? Or was it more perks? Could you put bets on with them, no limits, etc.?
No, you put your invoice in and you get paid. You don't get any special. Some people might. I'd be naive to suggest that people work for bookmakers because they might get preferential accounts, especially in the
if you're working, if you have an associate, like a professional association with them, you'd be more likely to stay away from betting with them, I would have thought, no?
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it, but I've never had any preferential treatment. The opposite. But
I think, if I can answer that one, that some people in the press, if they would have had their accounts without being in the press, they would have been closed down and they stayed open. Whether they're aware of that preferential treatment, is
I think they're well aware. I know if any of them get closed by mistake, a phone call goes in and that account gets reopened. And I think that's why a lot of the press were slow to get into.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's where a lot of people's frustrations come with how probably account restrictions and stuff like that was reported originally, or probably not reported.
You'll hear this a lot in the coming week from some people just say, "Oh, because it's Cheltenham, you can get more on," and stuff like that. If you've got a limited account, it doesn't become unlimited just for Cheltenham. Some members of the press do live in a fantasy world, or in a bubble.
I think also they might not be aware of the fact that they're given preferential treatment sometimes as well. It might not be. I'm sure maybe they are, but like, if you're betting away and you can still get on, and you never encounter any restriction to getting on, you might not be able to relate to people that aren't getting on.
It's and a lot of the people in the press do put on for other people. I mean, that's a fact as well.
100%. That is a fact.
Yeah, and I'm open for business if anyone wants to pay me commission.
The golden goose, you Carl.
I imagine you're a very good account to have you.
Yeah. To be honest with you, like I'm in so much negative equity, you can just go nuts. Like it won't until you clear at least 2 million in profit.
Remember affordability checks over here.
There's any number of stories about people trying to get hold of footballers losing accounts and suddenly kind of like the phoenix rising from the flames on those.
Yeah.
I imagine they're quite easy to spot, Anthony, aren't they?
Oh, my kingdom to have an account closed or limited in some way. DT Punchin says, final question. I'm just wondering, has the BHA integrity department lost all interest in all-weather racing? Zero Carbon was in no way a certain winner, but is a multiple course and distance over 7 furlongs at Kempton, including a better company. He ran there on Wednesday, was 15-2 the evening before and drifted to 45 before. GC.
I did have a look at this guy's account. I mean, I wouldn't say he's on the same conspiracy level as Anne Duffield, but this horse for his current trainer had beaten 4 horses out of 30 rivals in his previous 3 starts. He went for a walk in the market, finished stone last. So I'm not saying this horse isn't being lined up for a gamble down the line, because that's how all weather works.
Yeah.
And Irish jumps racing, but no, nothing to see here, I think.
Right. Okay. And finally, and I'm throwing this at you, Tony Calvin, and you know what? You can take it or you can knock it back. It really doesn't bother me whatsoever. I'm proposing next Monday on the show, it's a Hugh Cal versus Tony Cal Cheltenham. We pick one horse each day. Cal versus Calvin. Who comes out on top? Sponsored by AK Bets. We'll have like a fictitious tenner on each horse, whatever. You pick one Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll pick the same and see who makes more money. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're doing a show next week because it might get lost in all the betting furore. But if we do one, we're on. If not, we'll do it on.
We'll put it up, but we'll
do it the following Monday.
I still come out with a loss, judging by.
Yeah, we'll have it. All right, okay, we'll work through this next week.
It's like
we'll next week. If not, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. My thanks to the guys as always. Check out the AK Bets app and website. And the what's it called, AK? Your top dollar
big prices tab, Hugh. Come on,
big prices tab. That's it. Turning the headline for all the best prices on all the big sporting events. Thanks for your company. As always, we might or might not talk to you next week.